A big fellow buck, eh? That's
Big fallow buck.
yeah,
Okay, here we go. We're diving in.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's my go-to. It's yeah, it's 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 pretty weird. Like, I mean, I think it's for everyone it's different. It's pretty much what you grew up hunting and maybe what your first animal was, and just you actually like grew a passion towards that species. And yeah, for me it was a fallow deer right from the start, eh?
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Safari Trails Podcast. Today, I have a special guest on. We've been talking quite a bit, through Instagram and then now on WhatsApp. I have Jandre Strydom on here, and we met on Instagram. We've never met in person. This is the first time we've actually had like a video chat or anything, and it's just cool because he's just a bow hunting fanatic from South Africa, and I wanted to get him on, just talk about it because we've been talking a lot on WhatsApp about the difference between bow hunting here in the States and bow hunting growing up within South Africa. So, Jandre, thanks for jumping on, man, and let's get started. Let's just introduce yourself and tell people who you are, where you're from, and let's rock and roll.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm Jandre Strydom out of the Eastern Cape, out of South Africa. Pretty much grew up bow hunting, been bow hunting for about 15 years, and just a passion that changed my life forever. Eh? So no, I think it's something that's in South Africa, not a big thing, or bow hunting is pretty, I want to say, not too big, but there's more and more guys coming into it. So yeah, it's pretty cool to hop on here and chat with you about it.
Yeah, like we've been talking quite a bit on, now WhatsApp for a while about it, and it's just kind of cool to just see the difference. And we'll dive into that in a minute. But like I was going through, like scrolling through your Instagram again this morning, and like you said, you just got really dialed in on bow hunting the last 15 years. And we've talked on WhatsApp how you kind of just stepped away from the rifle hunting just because you've gotten so good at bow hunting and fell in love with it. Kind of dive into that process of how you just like when you picked up the bow for the first time and how you fell in love with bow hunting, especially within South Africa.
Yeah. So I mean, grew up in a family that's yeah, pretty into hunting and the outdoors in general, fishing, and my dad bow hunted and been bow hunting pretty much all his life. So we grew up rifle hunting. Um, Geez, until I was about 6 years old, shot my first animal, and then from there on, just pretty much rifle hunted every time we went up to the farm or went hunting. And then picked up a bow when I was about 8. Started shooting at targets. Went out with my dad a couple of times. Saw how he shot a fellow or two and some mountain reedbuck, and basically just fell in love with it. Hey? And I picked up my first real compound bow when I was 10 years old, and yeah, just basically fell in love with it straight away. Started walking and stalking and busting stalks here and there, and yeah, just absolutely fell in love with the passion and what it's all about, and the adventure and the challenge that goes with it. So yeah.
And so you were in the Eastern Cape, correct? That's where you're born and raised, or did you live other places throughout South Africa?
So I was actually born and raised in the Western Cape in an area called the Garden Route, specifically George, but spent most of my time in the Eastern Cape, hunting, fishing, out on the farm, just pretty much every opportunity I got, I was out there. Um, yeah,
So being the eastern, where you're down in the Eastern Cape, I explain to people because all of South Africa is different. Whether you're in Limpopo, KwaZulu
Yeah.
Natal, it's all different. But the Eastern Cape kind of is, I would say, like to me, like from my experience within South Africa, KwaZulu Natal can kind of fall into this too. But the Eastern Cape is a spot that you can be a younger person and just kind of have a great opportunity to do a bunch of different, hunting on free range on farms, low fence sheep farms, cattle farms, stuff like that, and then just be able to have kind of more of a free roaming activity, kind of like we do here in Wyoming as a young person on public land or just, going on someone's ranch or whatever. But to me, I feel like the Eastern Cape has a lot more opportunity for that compared to other places like maybe the Northern Cape or Limpopo.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's there's I must say we're pretty lucky in the Eastern Cape, like you're saying now, is the fact that there's quite a lot of farms around, being cattle farms, sheep farms, low fence, whatever the situation is, that's open to hunting in general and has abundance of species. And especially for young guys getting into it, getting into bow hunting, or just hunting in general, it's it's pretty nice to be able to go up to pretty much any farm and being able to either hunt springback, kudu, impala, whatever it is. Um, and like you say, it's there's quite a lot of opportunity all around the Eastern Cape, not just in certain pockets, but if you go like pretty high up, you get into what we call, what you guys call as well, the Big Sky Country and mountainous area where you target stuff like kudu and Vaal redback and stuff like that. And then you come down a bit more south towards PE or Port Elizabeth, and you get into more coastal areas where it's stuff like bushback, Inyala, warthog. You still find your pockets with kudu and stuff like that as well. But so we're pretty lucky with a wide variety of areas that we can hunt just within the Eastern Cape and the amount of game that there is. So there's quite a lot of opportunity for young guys to get into it, which is really nice.
Yeah, and the cool thing about like, I've said this a bunch, but Africa's not all flat, but the cool part about the Eastern Cape is you have a lot of really diversity within terrain that really is suitable for bow hunting because especially like down towards PE, like you said, it's it's not flat. It's like kind of rolling hills. You got your canyons and
Yeah,
stuff, but then you have your actual real mountainous terrain. But down towards PE, it's really thick vegetation and some of that
yeah,
stuff. So it gives you the opportunity to make stalks on animals. So let's just kind of dive into that type of setup. What is it like hunting in the Eastern Cape type of bow hunting? Like how does that work for you? Like what do you think it correlates to hunting here in the States? Because you've come into the States and you've done some hunting here as well. So kind of just give people the breakdown on how that is.
yeah. I think especially up north in the Eastern Cape, I would say it's pretty similar to hunting a place like Colorado or even maybe Oregon, Wyoming. I mean, it's you've got areas like I said with massive mountains and deep canyons and basins and stuff, and then like you come down south, you like you just said, it's more like rolling hills and stuff like that. I think uh, out of a point of view of taking the Eastern Cape, comparing it to a place like let's say Colorado, where you get an OTC tag, I definitely feel like maybe in the Eastern Cape there's a bit more you hunter specific area, but you may be the only hunter in there, or there's maybe let's say one or two other guys in there. So where compared to a place like Colorado where you're on public land, you've got multiple, or I mean, 50 to 100, or how many guys is on a certain piece of property. So it's out of that, I think the Eastern Cape is definitely, and especially up north where it gets a bit more tougher and mountainous area. I mean, it's basically just you, and if you do have a guide or a PH with you. So um, I do think that out of that case, it's hunting in the States is definitely a bit tougher, and especially public land. And I do also feel like you guys, the terrain and stuff that you guys hunt in and weather conditions in certain areas is definitely tougher than in the Eastern Cape. It doesn't get as cold, so yeah, I think in some situations it's pretty similar, but also like I said, I think there's a lot more competition on your side in certain areas. A lot more guys hunting where coming in the Eastern Cape, there's even if you're hunting a free range area, you still have to unfortunately go to the farmer, ask permission to hunt in that area. And I mean, at most, you may be two, three, maybe five guys in that area, and it's big properties. So you're not gonna really see. I don't think you're gonna see as much hunting pressure on game and stuff as the same in Colorado or Wyoming or Montana or wherever. Which is, I think it's definitely more challenging to hunt in the States in that aspect.
Yeah, for sure. And we talked about this quite a bit of how the opportunity is. Like, let's say here in Wyoming or even Colorado, we buy OTC tags, or you even draw a tag. Like, you're only getting that. Like, most of the time, there's only going to be one season open at a time for you. Like, here in Wyoming, our bow season, I can buy an over the counter deer and over the counter elk tag, and that's September. But I can only, like, at most of the time, you only have two tags in your pocket, to where in South Africa, or pretty much anywhere in Africa, you can have an abundance of
Yeah,
available, let's say, tags in your pocket. So, like, let's just say, for instance, you're going out, you're back home, you're going to go do a hunting for the week, you're going for 5 days. How many different animals do you have the opportunity to take compared to us hunting that one elk or one deer?
yeah. I must say we're pretty lucky with that. It's like you say, it's unfortunately in the States you only get that one opportunity. Let's say one tag for mule deer or one elk, or and I mean some guys wait years for a specific tag. Back home, I would say you've got at least an opportunity or a variety of about seven species to hunt just on most properties. I mean, going up from hunting steenbuck, duiker, impala, springbuck, mountain reedbuck, kudu. It's just there's and there's a big variety of game in most places. Sure, you're definitely going to get pockets where a guy's only going to have some plains game like springbuck, impala, and maybe duiker. But most parts of the Eastern Cape, you're going to sit with quite a variety of game and multiple opportunities in a short amount of time to harvest animals because of that, which is pretty nice, and especially for bow hunting, especially if you starting off um, new to bow hunting and you just want to get in as much talks and as much time in the felt as possible, and just basically going through all the curves and learning how to operate and how to stalk. And it's awesome because I think, I mean, you get multiple opportunities within one day of just practicing and practicing and practicing, which is pretty cool. I must say we're pretty fortunate with that.
Yeah, that's one thing we talked about for sure. Is you guys get more of a, to me, I'd say you get more trigger time. That's what I called it when we were talking. It's like you get more trigger time because the amount of game, like, to me, yeah, sure. Like, there's some areas you can go and you'll see a lot of game here in the States, but it might be just like you see that one, like you're hunting elk and you see a lot of elk, but the opportunity and chances of a shot for most guys is very limited during that time. For you, like, even if you're just gonna go hunt, like, let's say Diker and Impala or whatever, there's a lot more trigger time and a lot more opportunity, because I feel like even within, like, the low fence cattle or sheep farms within South Africa, the abundance of game on these properties is so much more than most public land areas in the states. Sure, there's some great private property that is, has well managed game, but just on
Yeah.
public land, I feel like it's just so much harder. And then you're dealing with competition of other hunters here. What would you say has been the, like, if someone wants to, like, either a young South African or someone wants to come over from the States and get, like, just get into bow hunting, or even hunting period, like, the benefits of going to Africa and going on a safari is so much better, and you learn so much more. Like you said, stocks, you see so much more game. What would you say would be the key factors in someone coming over to, like, let's say the Eastern Cape and trying to do a safari, like a bow hunting
Um,
safari in particular?
I would definitely say, look, if like I said, I mean, you're gonna sit with multiple opportunities over a short amount of time, which is really nice. Um, Personally, I would definitely say if you come over, like, first of all, being fit and being in shape is that's definitely a must. Especially if you're gonna hunt some mountainous areas, like we've got some deep canyons and big mountains. And unfortunately, um, with it being, I mean, there being such abundance of game, we do have quite a lot of predators and stuff. So the game, especially if there's been if a predator control hasn't been, let's say, that much during the season, or guys haven't hunted quite a lot of jackal or caracal, the game can be super wary. So I would say definitely being fit and in shape to cover quite a lot of ground, because even though there's a lot of game, you're still hunting big areas. Um, it's not uncommon to cover 15, 20 kilometers a day, even more, and you're seeing multiple game, but being able to get within that shot opportunity or just even stalking. So definitely fitness wise, I would say good optics. Like really, if you can invest in the best optics that you possibly can, I would say that's a must. You're gonna scout some big areas and long distances, especially if you go target stuff like kudu, eland, and zebra for sure. And then, I mean, it comes to down to personal gear. I've definitely hiking boots and stuff, to have some proper hiking boots and shoes that you're comfortable to cover big miles and big country. That's definitely a must as well. And just yeah, like I said, being in shape, I would personally think is probably the best, if or the biggest factor that comes into that.
Yeah, and I like how you bring that part up because like fitness is for like all aspects of hunting. Like whether it doesn't matter if you're like a whitetail hunter and you're sitting in a tree stand, like climbing in and out of that tree stand, it's just better. Like you just enjoy life so much more when you're fit. Like
Yeah,
I've been on the opposite side of things. I was pretty out of shape and overweight for a little bit, and then I got really like focused in on my fitness. And it's like I feel like you just enjoy the experience of the hunt much more. And you could go
yeah,
that extra mile if you see that big, let's say you see that big bush buck or that big kudu. You can go that extra mile to make the possibility of that unfolding happen.
yeah.
So we were talking a little bit before we jumped on here, and I'm bouncing all around just because it's like it's
No,
exciting to talk to you and it's exciting to hear all this. You got started into bow hunting. You're not a full time PH. Do you PH at all? And kind of like obviously you do the boat thing that we've talked about, but you
mm.
are passionate about hunting. Are you a PH at all? Do you take guys? Kind of what's the deal with that?
So yeah, I'm not a PH at well, pretty much not a PH at all. I do help out every now and then if we do get a guys in and there's bow hunters or whatever, and the guys are keen to take someone out with them and someone that maybe knows the area. So um, it it's nice to go out with guys, and especially if you know the area and maybe someone from, let's say, out of the States is there, and just someone that's keen to go for a walk with a bow, and yeah, just go with him and show him the ropes. And I mean, if you if you know the area and know where the animals are, it always helps if someone is with you that has the knowledge in regards to that. So, but yeah, back to your point, I'm not a full time PH, so pretty much just yeah, all the time I can, I hunt by myself and spend as much time bow hunting and just out on the field, and yeah, so
And that's the cool thing. It's like because like that's the cool part. Like you see a lot of PHs that don't get a lot of the real hardcore PHs that have been in it for a long time. They don't really get a lot of trigger time for themselves. And sometimes I feel like, especially with bow hunting, um, I do feel like sometimes a PH might not understand what's going on with the hunter when it comes to gear or that shot opportunity. Like
mm,
it's easy to say, okay, there's the kudu, he's 50 yards, but maybe like there's a little bit of a difference between the hunter side of things and the PH side of things. And it's cool that you spend most of your time personally hunting. So kind of maybe what I want to do is talk to somebody, or talk to people about when it comes down to preparation for the shot. Like, what's the distance that you think is the average distance that you're going to be taking shots in with a bow within the Eastern Cape? What's your bow setup like? Kind of break that down for somebody that's wanting to come over there that might not be talking to a real avid bow hunting PH. They might guide a lot of bow hunters, but they don't know the gear and know the exact setups like you would because you get a lot of time behind the bow.
yeah. So I would say probably the average distance is going to be, I would say, from 30 meters to 50 meters. If you're comfortable shooting out to 50 meters, you're definitely going to get an opportunity. Um, it's always difficult coming within 50 meters or 40 meters. I mean, yeah, sometimes it's easy to get within that distance, but to get a shooting lane or a shooting opportunity, especially in Africa, targeting stuff like springback or impala, there's just so many eyes around and ears being herd animals and living in herds of, I mean, those sizes. So what we found over the years is that, I mean, if you can shoot comfortably out to 50, even 60 meters, your success rate is going to go through the roof. Because, like I said, unfortunately, most of the times, and I mean, it's on bigger animals as well, um, as soon as you get within that 30, 35-meter range, sometimes your shot opportunity, or like I said, your shooting lane is just so much less than being sitting back at 50 meters and you've got 4 or 5 shooting lanes you can work with. So I would definitely say if you can shoot out to 50 meters, that's a good distance. If you can shoot out to 50 meters and shoot out comfortably, you'll definitely be successful, especially in the Eastern Cape, um, with that. And then down to equipment, I mean, personal preference. I think a lot of guys think you have to come to Africa with an 80-pound bow, shooting 600 or 800 grain arrows, um, which, sure, I mean, it is Africa and it is African animals, but it's not necessarily at all. I mean, we shoot and we've tested arrows. I mean, going from 350 grains, 400 grains, 400 and up. I mean, we've tested quite a lot of equipment, a lot of broadheads. Um, Personally, I shoot an arrow that's around about 420 to 440 grains. I do shoot a fixed blade, either two blade or three blade, just personal preference. Um, and then bow wise, I mean, shooting longer distances, I would definitely recommend shooting something that's got some energy behind it and that's going to throw an arrow at a good speed. Um, so my personal bow at the moment is a Matthews Lift 29. Um, I'm running it at 70, 75 pounds, still bouncing around with the mods and tinkering around, but running it with a one pin sight and an arrow that's, yeah, like I said, anything from 420 to 440 grains, and we've killed a lot of game with it. A bunch of, I mean, basically going up from Kempsbach all the way down to Steenbach and anything in between. And then also from 20 meters all the way out to 70, 80 meters. So I would definitely say, personally, I would say an arrow within, I would say 420 to 550 grains. If you're going to target plains game, I would say that's definitely something, or in that range is definitely an arrow that's more than enough. Um, and then bow wise as well, like I said, I mean, it's not necessary to come to Africa and shoot an 80-pound bow or shoot something that's running at 330 feet per second. I would say, I mean, my personal setup is running at about 300, 310 feet per second. And for me, that absolutely works perfect. So,
And I think that's a great point to talk on because I had Garrett from Grizzly Stick on, and obviously like everyone thinks that he is all about the heavier arrow, and he actually said he was not about having the super heaviest arrow. It's just about having that heavier front of center. And
yeah,
he even gives me shit because my bow is set at 80 pounds, and I got to bring it down because he's like, dude, you're gonna tear your rotator cuff. You're gonna be like, when you're older, he's like, you're gonna be so sore. And I'm like, yeah, I probably should bring it down a little bit. But I was always stuck on that thing, like you gotta have like the most heaviest bow ever. You know what I mean? Like you
yeah,
gotta have 90, 100 pounds. Like when the Matthews Monster first came out, I think that was like the first like quote unquote bow that was like off the shelf built for like Africa because you could crank
yeah,
that
yeah,
thing up, and I bought it. And I'm like, I couldn't even pull back 80 pounds when I bought that thing. I was like 14 years old, I was just like, good God, this thing's heavy. But like, that's the thing is I think a lot of guys think that they got to have an 80-pound bow when they go to Africa. Now, sure, like if you're going to do like more of the dangerous game stuff, you got to have a bigger setup and,
yeah,
or like, but like for the guy that's going over for that first time plains game safari, like you said, shooting a 70 to 75-pound bow, 440 to 550 grain arrow, that's a perfect setup. And personally, I'm not a big expandable fan, period, no matter what you're shooting at.
Yeah,
And I like how you kind of brought up that fixed blade. But again, like in Africa, you're like it's not like it's wide open flat country. You're going to be shooting through some thick stuff, and you got to be able to have a broadhead that might have to go through a little bit of vegetation and
yeah, for
not
sure.
open up when it hits a twig or something. Let's dive into some of the hunting scenarios and like story wise for you, because you shot bushbuck, fallow deer, steenbuck, diker. Like, let's talk about some of the different hunts that you've done, and I want to get into the fallow subject here in a minute
Yeah.
because we talked about that before. But what has been like? What is your, let's say, if you're gonna go back when you get back home, what is your favorite? Like, what is your thing? Like, okay, this is what I want to go hunt this weekend. If you had to pick one species out of the abundance of species, what would be your one species that you would like to hunt every weekend or every week?
But a big fellow buck, eh? That's
Big fallow buck.
yeah,
Okay, here we go. We're diving in.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's my go-to. It's yeah, it's 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 pretty weird. Like, I mean, I think it's for everyone it's different. It's pretty much what you grew up hunting and maybe what your first animal was, and just you actually like grew a passion towards that species. And yeah, for me it was fallow deer right from the start. Eh? And,
See, that's cool because we talked about this briefly. For a lot of people that don't know, fallow deer are introduced to South Africa, but in the Eastern Cape, like when I was there in 2022, there were some kids on holiday from school, and all they talked
yeah,
about was hunting fallow deer. So let's dive into that because it's like I find it interesting that you guys have bushbuck, which I freaking love, kudu. Like you have all these species that are like indigenous to where you guys are, but then you have this introduced fallow deer, and the guys in the Eastern Cape go flipping nuts for them. Let's talk about
yeah.
that.
No, true. It is pretty weird. I mean, it's like I said. I mean, Eastern Cape's got a absolute mental variety of game, and fallow deer is probably one of the most popular species for guys to hunt. Even, I mean, right through South Africa, going all the way up to Limpopo, and up into the Free State. And luckily for us, the Eastern Cape is one of those pockets where just, I mean, the fallow numbers just absolutely exploded and became one of those species that just, I want to say, became pretty much a go-to venison for everyone. Um, and like you said as well, it's not a native species to Africa at all. Got introduced in the late 1800s by Cecil John Rhodes, and basically moved from all the way from Cape Town up into the Eastern Cape and just basically stayed and created these small pockets all over the Eastern Cape where you can find tremendous numbers of fallow. And I mean, I was just lucky growing up hunting fallow from a young age, with it being either shooting does or shooting bucks. Hunting the rat during the month of April or late March into April is definitely my favorite time of year. Chasing big fallow bucks and the rat croaking throughout the valleys and yeah, just became my favorite animal to pursue with a bow.
Because I guess, I mean, technically, that's the only animal that really makes a rutting. It'd be like hunting elk here in the States for us, or going to New Zealand hunting stags and fallow deer there. Like, that is like the animal that's going to be croaking, like you said, they're going to be, doing that bullfroggy sounding roar. Like, it's a cool sound that they make. And I guess that's technically the only animal that really makes a whole lot of rutting noise within South Africa or even Africa as a whole, correct?
Yeah, that's, I mean, it's quite a, it's difficult to explain to someone that hasn't heard the sound. It's like I heard one of the guys explain it and said it's a mix between a cow and a lion, and I was actually laughing at it. But it sounds like I don't want to say a knocker version of a red stag, but something like that. It's like this deep croaking noise that just fills up the valleys and all over, and yeah, it's just one of those noises. And I mean, I think it's the same with you guys. It just gets your blood fired up, and as soon as you hear those first croaks in the rut, it's go time. The bucks are out, and it's pretty incredible. Like, you'll sit up on a hillside and you'd hear a buck croaking, and you think that buck's 400, 500 meters below you. Meanwhile, that buck's about 2 k's over onto the other side. But those croaks are so loud, like you literally sit there and you think this buck's right here. Or you would stalk into a rutting pad, and being in areas where the vegetation might be thick, you'd be stalking, and you literally think that stag is 50 or 100 meters, maybe within bow range of you. And then you come around the bush and you're like, but where is this buck? And then he starts croaking, and then you realize this buck's about another 400 meters ahead. So it's pretty incredible actually how loud it is, and especially when they start fighting and stuff as well. And yeah, I mean that month of April is just absolute magic in the Eastern Cape.
So when you do these Eastern Cape fallow deer hunts, are you like obviously you're planning for the rut? Because that's when I was over there when those kids were on holiday. They were
Yeah.
like, fallow rut's on, we're going fallow deer hunting. So for you, like and a lot of other people, do you guys is it like a time where a lot of people take off either work, they're on holiday from school? Is that like kind of a big thing within the Eastern Cape community? Like September here in the United States for elk, it's like anyone that
Yeah.
goes elk hunting, they're taking time off, going off on the weekends. Like you said, you live for that month type of deal. Is that like a very popular thing, or is that a hand selecting few people within the Eastern Cape?
Um, I think a couple of years ago it was only a hand-selected couple of guys that really targeted the rut. But I think more and more, and especially school holidays and stuff, is falling into the beginning of April, which is normally the start of the rut. And more and more guys are taking off work and taking time off to actually go and target the fellows in the rut, which is pretty nice to see. Um, More guys getting into it, and even more so now because what happens is the fallow rat normally ends, I would say, around about the 25th to 28th of April. Um, Weather dependent as well, but normally around there. And then pretty much straight away, the kudu rat starts. So a lot of guys do like the last bit of fallow hunting, and then would start targeting the kudu bulls and stuff like that. So, which is pretty cool to see as well. So yeah, a lot of guys, I would say you can definitely compare the month of April being like September for you guys with elk and stuff. Yeah.
What has been your like since we're sticking on the fallow subject quick, what's like one of the stories, like what has been your favorite like memory fallow deer hunting in that thick Eastern Cape brush? Because like that stuff is super thick in certain areas, and I know that
Yeah.
there could be a lot of fun stories had within that. So what's one of your favorite stories, if you have one that you think of off the top of your head?
Um, Definitely the buck that I took this year. Um, so I was fortunate enough to be on the farm during the whole of lockdown. Literally from the day it started to the day it ended, and we hunted every single day. And I caught a glimpse of a buck back in 2020, which I knew straight away that he must be close to either the top three free ranging bucks in South Africa or top three fellow bucks in South Africa if I could take him with a bow. And as luck would have it, unfortunately, it didn't happen, and I had a couple of close calls and missed opportunity or two, and he ended up slipping away. And I didn't see him for 2 years. I I thought maybe another buck killed him, or he didn't make it through the winter. And I hunted the same piece of property for the first time this year since 2020, since 2022. And myself and my brother was with me actually. And we were in the same area where I've seen this or saw this back in 2020. And we got into this rutting pad, and there was a bunch of does, and just sitting there watching. And basically we saw quite a nice stag, but a buck that I knew that had good potential, but needs another 2 or 3 years. And literally out of the thickets, this guy steps out, and when I saw him, I immediately knew it was the same buck. Like he just blew into an absolute giant buck. And yeah, it was quite awesome to have my brother there. And we're sitting on this ratting pad, and I've got about 40 does in front of me, can barely move, and we've got this buck at like 40 meters, and just couldn't get a shot opportunity, and they ended up busting out. And yeah, we backed out, came back about 2 days later, and same situation. We got onto the rutting pad again, and there was a younger buck on the rutting pad, and I knew this buck had to just be in the vicinity somewhere. He's either bedded down, or he's just standing somewhere in the thick vegetation where we can't see him. And sure enough, this guy starts croaking and just gets him fired up, which is about 200 meters down the slope. And I could just see the tips of his antlers coming up the slope to the rutting pad. And basically just unfolded right in front of us. Two bucks just going at it. End up chasing the other buck off, and I managed to get a shot at 63 meters. Um, get a shot at him, and my shot was a little bit back, but my brother immediately said to me, he's like, "Hey, good shot, good shot." The buck came, literally walked past us at like 30 meters, and I picked up my binos to have a look where my shot was, and I couldn't see it, couldn't see blood, couldn't see an entry wound, nothing. So I was a bit worried, and immediately knocked another arrow. And as he was walking away, I ranged a tree in front of him, and the same thing was about 60, 64 meters, and he kept on walking, and luckily I stopped him like, right as he got to the tree, and basically just drew back and flung another arrow and hit him perfectly and went down within 40, 50 meters, which ended up being my biggest buck to date, and yeah, probably one of the biggest fellow bucks that's been taken with a bow in South Africa. So yeah,
Did your
definitely the
was your
highlight.
first shot good?
It was actually it was better than I thought. My brother immediately called it. He said, "Good shot," and it was about 4 inches behind the shoulder, mid body. Like he would have definitely through both lungs. He would have definitely died from the first shot. I couldn't see the shot and couldn't see a entry wound, so immediately knocked the arrow and yeah, send another arrow. Which ended up yeah, basically complete pass through, and buck went down within seconds. So yeah, it was awesome having my brother there as well, sitting by my side and just everything unfolding in front of us. Yeah,
I mean, I bet that was a fun thing, especially having your brother there, being able to call your shot, like you said, like because if you were by yourself, like you know what I mean, like I could only imagine like how nervous you could have got, and like maybe without having your brother there to say good shot, even though you second guessed it when you looked through your binos, your second shot you might have been more nervous if you didn't already know that you had an arrow in him. And I think that's really cool. And just like the whole experience, the way you said it went down, they were fighting, they chased each other off. And so, since fallow deer is like your favorite, like which one of these plains game species within the Eastern Cape or wherever in Africa that you've hunted, which one's the hardest in your eyes to do with a bow?
I would definitely say black wildebeest there. Black wildebeest is right up there. Just where they live, how they operate, and how tough those things are is absolutely incredible. Um, yeah, it's I mean they call them the clowns of the plains, and it's true. Like I mean, you'll be sitting having black wildebeest within bow range, all of a sudden they just take off and just go for a casual 3K run and don't even come back. So yeah, I would definitely say black wildebeest there,
Because I
definitely.
seen that your post. Have you only got that old cow that you got, or have you got a bull since then?
No, only been that old cow. Yeah,
Because I mean, even with a rifle, like those things, like they're so. I'm not saying like they're not like they're almost so dumb. They're smart because they you could be like even when you're rifle hunting, you could be glassing them 600-700 yards away, and like you said, they could just pack up and just go like for no like for the weirdest reason ever. They just haul ass somewhere else, and it's like why do they do that? Like um, what is like to get that cow? What does it take someone to get a big black wildebeest with a bow? Now I get like there's been a lot shot with a bow, and like some people will sit over a feed, and like some people hunt very small camps for them or whatever. To do a real proper spot and stock with a bow on a black wildebeest, lay that out on how that has to like how the perfect setup has to be because like you said, you've only got that old cow, and it's for someone that's taken as many animals with a bow as you have, it's got to be a very challenging thing to do a proper spot and stock on a big black wildebeest bull.
yeah, no, for sure. I mean, first of all, where they live, it's normally in the wide open. Um, you don't have a lot of cover to work with, so you can bank on a shot being probably over 50 meters, especially walk and stalk. I mean, both myself and that good mate of mine, Matt Biggs, both we took those two blue wildebeest, oh, black wildebeest pretty much within a week, and both our shots were, I mean, over 60 meters. So I would definitely say if uh, if you want to be successful, it's going to be a long shot for sure. I mean, yeah, sure, there might be opportunity where they feed towards you or whatever, and you get a closer shot, but bank on it. That's it's going to be a shot over 50 meters. And then second of all, their eyesight is absolutely incredible. Like you said, I mean, you can sit up on a slope in the shade, glassing, and then I mean, and they herd animals as well. So I mean, there's normally more than 15 or 20 or 25 of them. Um, so there's always one watching at all times. It's pretty incredible actually. I'm just thinking back now. When I took that cow, there was a herd of about 25, and I hunted for 6 days just black wallabies. I mean, we had the opportunity to take zebra, gamesbuck, springbuck, the whole lot, and I just said to myself, I was like, listen, I'm just targeting black wallabies. That's it. I've never shot one with a bow, and it was on my bucket list. So um, and it took me 6 full days. I literally shot that cow on the last afternoon. I got an opportunity and yeah, could make it count. But yeah, like I said, I mean, where they live is definitely, it just makes them incredibly tough to get close to. Then being herd animals, having incredible eyesight and smell, um, and then just being tough in general. I mean, it's it's absolutely incredible how tough those animals are. I was with Matt Biggs when he shot his bull, and he got an opportunity and had a frontal shot at 60. I think it was just over 60 meters, and absolutely, I mean, you couldn't place that arrow any better than where it landed. That bull took off at a million miles an hour, ended up face planting, and I mean, we thought, okay, that's a done deal. Um, Ended up running about 200, 300 meters, followed the blood, got there, the bull was bedded. He gave him another shot. Bull took off again. I mean, perfect shot, like same thing. I couldn't believe that bull was still alive. Took off and we ended up following him again. Found him, he was still alive, and Matt gave him a third shot, if I can remember correctly. So it's incredible how tough they are. I mean, even though that old cow that I shot as well was just, I mean, perfect shot straight into the chest. Arrow exited on the opposite shoulder, and as she ran away, I could see the exit wound, I could see the entry wound, and I mean, I really thought I was like, that's job done. And that cow ended up going almost 900 meters before she expired.
Wow.
So yeah, that's incredibly tough animal there.
Yeah, and like you said, they live in the wide open too. Like obviously, like I said, Africa is not all flat and wide open, but they will pick the most wide open spot on any of the property that they're on and just hang out. And that has to be like some sort of obviously that's like their safe felt like their mechanism to stay alive. But like what is like besides like maybe a young calf like a caracal would be like, and then obviously in Eastern Cape you guys have some monster leopards that roam around out there too, and I'd imagine they would put the hurt on them. But like it's just like so odd. Like it's like there's in the sense there's very limited predators for like a big bull. It's like, but why is he like so turned on all of the
Yeah,
time? Like it's like they are like even like compared to like Gemsbuck, like they're all like the black wildebeest, like you said, they're switched on all the time. They have great eyesight, and I've only the last black wildebeest I shot, he was by himself, but it was like he was by himself over here, but there was like a herd of 50, like not very far that way. They're never just chilling by themselves like all the
yeah,
time,
no.
which is very hard for a bow hunter. Obviously, you have plans to try to shoot a bull with a bow and hunt more of them. What would be? I get asked this question a lot, and I want to ask you, what would be your favorite game animal within South Africa to eat? Like, what's like if you're gonna go like for the pot, like go get some biltong, like what's the number one animal you're gonna go try to whack for that?
Fallow deer, without a
Fallow deer.
doubt.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
the fallow venison is, I must say, it's probably personally for me is one of the best venisons out there. Um, Especially a certain time of year, if from I would say from February to March, if we've had really good rains the past 2 years, 2 3 years, so the Eastern Cape is, I mean, the vegetation is just incredible, and you can see it on the animals as well. I mean, we shot last year. I shot a stag, and I mean, it had about 2 inches of fat on its back straps. I mean, we literally when we took the skin off, it looks like a lamb, or yeah, it was incredible. So I would definitely say fallow. It's just they're super tender, super tasty. It's just really good venison in general.
I haven't tried it in South Africa, and that's like I'm gonna have to make sure that happens because I've had fallow deer, in Argentina and New Zealand. Um, but I think it's just to me like most of the game within South Africa has, or even just Africa as a whole, has a better like I don't know, but it might just be because I love Africa so much. I feel like the game, like I don't know if it's obviously it has to do with something that they eat. You know, they're not like obviously like you said the black wildebeest run quite a bit, but it's like elk here in Wyoming or mule deer or even antelope, they have to like they struggle so much. Like the mule deer in parts of Wyoming here, they have to travel 150 miles just to
Yeah,
winter. And I feel like that has to like that strenuous travel, the hard winters we have. I feel like that does have some sort of effect on like the venison side of things, to where like obviously you guys have winters, you guys do get snow. Um, it's just they're not migrating that massive amounts of time, and the vegetation, like you said, like when I was there in 2022, like there was a lot of rains going on, like it was like flourishing, the wildlife looked super healthy. I just feel like the venison and the taste of the wild game in Africa is like tough to beat. I'm a big fan of mountain reedbuck and eland. Like it's all good, but like I
yeah.
like those two especially. Um, you've done a lot of like the small animal stuff, like you've done Diker and Steenbuck. I was thinking you were gonna say one of those was actually gonna be the hardest, just because of shot placement. But obviously, the whole hunt scenario of getting close, the shot placement on a wildebeest, that I see where that overruns the small stuff. How hard
Yeah.
is shot placement though on those small animals?
It uh, it's pretty difficult there. It depends also where you hunt them, but most of the time it happens super quickly. Like you either walking down a ravine or in thick stuff, and you literally walk straight onto a darker, and it's basically well, if you've got a multi-pin, then you're lucky, but it's basically draw it back and let it go. Um, and especially with darker string jumping, they just I would say if you can, if there's one animal that's going to definitely string jump you, it's a darker, without a doubt. Um, yeah, we've had some crazy encounters with that. Just, I mean, you literally aim, I would say 4 inches below the brisket, and they string jump you where you still go over their back. It's just incredible how agile those animals are. And Steenbuck as well. I mean, Steenbuck even more, being smaller than darker and being so alert. Um, so, and it's, I mean, basically just the survival of the fittest out there. I mean, it's definitely both Stembuck and Darker is um, for predators, predator wise. I mean, caracal and jackal. That's probably the two animals that gets hammered the most by the predators. So I mean, they're just super alert and super switched on. So as soon as they bow go off, it's ducking and getting out of there. Um, so yeah, no, it's I would say Steenbach probably even more so, well, even more so than Darker, but yeah, it's just incredible how agile those small animals are.
Yeah, and like again, like I thought that was gonna be one of the top two for like I figured like those were gonna be like the top ones that'd be the hardest to hunt just because of how small they are. But like you said, you can bump into them more relatively at a shooting distance because they're in more thicker brush compared to just meandered into a black wildebeest. Like the odds of you just walking
Yeah.
into one like in the brush is very limited. So I find that very interesting, very cool on that sense. I don't want to keep you too much longer today, but I want to ask you what would be like okay, I'm going to ask you two things. First one is what is your number one all-time dream bow hunt that you want to do? Anywhere in Africa, anywhere in the world, anywhere. And then what is your number one Africa bow hunt that you want to do that you haven't done yet?
Um, so I would say probably number one in the world is a doll sheep. Um, doesn't matter where. I'd probably say up in BC. Um, yeah, that's a dream of mine. Yeah, for me, that's the ultimate. Well, I mean, either one of the sheep species being Rocky Mountain, bighorn, but the dhole for me is one that stands out. Just I mean, where they live and the type of terrain that they live in is absolutely incredible. And I mean, same thing. They're normally in the wide open, so to get close to with a bow is it's pretty difficult. So yeah, I would definitely say Dall sheep in that aspect. Um, and then Africa, buffalo. Yeah. Big big buffalo is it's on the list. Hopefully, can make it happen next year. So that's the plan. But yeah, a big old Dagga boy is I think for any African bow hunter or guy that yeah grew up bow hunting in Africa, that's the pinnacle there. To shoot a
Yeah.
big old buff. So
Where are
no.
you gonna try to do your buffalo at?
Uh, Either up in Natal or up in like Limpopo area, or maybe even Tanzania. We'll definitely see if I can yeah can organize something up there. But I definitely, if possible, I want to get go and hunt it outside of South Africa. Um, probably Tanzania or Mozambique or so. So yeah, we'll hopefully it will come. Or if all the plans come together, that will happen next year. So
Oh, that'd be
pretty
cool.
amped. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. How many different animals have you, like species wise? Like obviously you've shot a number of fallow deer, bucks, and does, but how many different antelope species within South Africa or even Africa as a whole have you got with a bow?
Yeah. I'm gonna take a guess now, but I would probably say close close to 20, maybe even over 20. Um, been pretty fortunate with yeah with having multiple opportunities and um, basically just yeah going on a hunt and the guy says to you, listen, we need some meat or this we need to kill some of these animals or and you get an opportunity to hunt something that you might not have planned for and yeah just been pretty fortunate with that.
Yeah, that's sweet,
So
man.
yeah,
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 that goes back to the whole opportunity. You guys have just so much more opportunity for trigger time and spot, just even to get the reps in from stocks and stuff. So I find that very cool. Well, man, I don't want to keep you too much longer. I appreciate you taking the time, and man, I really liked it. Sorry for bouncing around so much, but it was just so
no,
exciting to
no,
get
all
you
good,
on.
man. Yeah,
We'll have to do another one and like actually I'll have like a because we didn't have this plan. It was just like kind of a last minute thing that came together. We'll have to
yeah,
plan one out and we'll actually have like a set diagram to go off of.
yeah.
But I think it's cool that you got on. I appreciate you kind of explain to people, the setups, the you don't need 80-pound bows. Like I appreciate
Mm.
you telling people that. Where can people find you and follow you on social media?
So Instagram, pretty active on Instagram, and then got a YouTube channel as well. Been trying to find some time to edit more videos and yeah, be more active on YouTube. But Instagram, just under my name underscore my surname underscore. So yeah,
Perfect. So I'll link those in the descriptions, and then I will put some photos in from that fallow buck you shot, and
yeah,
just to show people that I think it's super sweet. Like the fallow thing, it just amazes me how everyone just like you think of picture Africa, kudu, and then it's like nope, fallow deer. So I think that's super cool.
yeah,
And
no,
we're gonna have to maybe next year we'll make a plan. I'll have to come over and we'll do like a bow hunt for a fallow buck or something just to have fun, hang out. But man, I
yeah, no, for
appreciate
sure,
you
man.
hopping on today. Um, Again, I thank you so much, man, and we'll have to catch up again and have fun over there on
Yeah,
your
thanks.
your work journey and be safe, man.